what is up mga bis? So example number 3 na po tayo sa pagsosolve ng deflection in beams using the double integration method. Let's go! Alright? Ayan. So, makikita natin mga bis, no? Ito yung beam natin. Solve natin. So, it is, naka-overhang siya sa dalawang sides. So, it's like double overhanging beam. Kumbaga parang ganon. Naka-overhang siya at A and at B. Overhang meaning free. Naka-free yung isang end. Tama ba? Yung pinabayaan. Yan. Walang support. Yan. Parang sa portion na to and this portion. Now, if you would try to look at yung mga loadings, walang loadings, pero meron tayo dito mga concentrated moment at both ends with similar magnitude, 20 keep foot. So, moment na yan, concentrated moment. And if we would try to project kung ano yung magiging itsura niyan pag magdi-deflect yan or pag mag-bend, di ba? Para magiging ganyan na. Iikot yan ng pag gano'n yan. Ibig sabihin, ito yung yung bending niya magiging similar to parang ganyan, di ba? Kasi parang ipupush niya yan pag gano'n, di ba? So, ganito yung magiging itsura niya. Which means, no, that the deflection at this point, at the center here, would be positive. Would be positive. Bakit? Kasi pataas, di ba? Sa ating mga previous examples, usually pag ganun lahat kaya nagiging negative yung result natin. So, one way to check if we are to solve the deflection at this portion at the midspan would be, it should be positive. Okay? So, let's see that. Now, tingnan natin muna yung tanong. Okay? Sabi dito, determine the slope at A. So, yeah. Determine the slope at A dito daw. Ano daw yung slope niya sa A? Slope at A, ibig sabihin, if the deflection would look something like that, at yung tangent line doon sa deflection yan, sa point na A. So, yan. Ano yung slope ng A na yan? Well, of course, we can solve that later on using the slope equation. And then, another question here is that what is the maximum deflection? Now, if you are try to look at the maximum deflection here, may mga overhang tayo dito, no? May mga overhang tayo dito mga bis, and I suppose it is not conclusive for now to assume that the maximum deflection will occur at the midspan. Kasi meron tayong mga overhang, which means possible na it's either, para sa akin, it's either sa midspan or sa free end na to. It is a free end na to yung maximum deflection. So, we could solve both to see if what is right or wrong, okay? Now, what we are certain here, alam natin that the slope at here at the midspan, the slope here is 0. Bakit? Kasi, di ba, parang magiging mountain siya. Alam natin that at maximum point, no, or at that point kung saan nagpalit yung slope or walang slope, kumbaga horizontal, di ba? Ito, horizontal siya dyan. Ang slope dyan is 0. So, we can use that as our boundary condition in solving such problem. Okay, so, ayan. Yun lang naman. Okay, so how are we going to start solving this problem? I suggest we start with the formula, no? Para makita natin kung ano yung mga kulang at wala na. So, y double prime is equal to m or the moment equation over EI or the flexural rigidity. Now, sabi kasi sa ating problem, constant yung EI. So, in the latter end, we will just express it like a variable. So, constant, ibig sabihin uniform siya all throughout. So, yeah. Yun. Uniform siya all throughout. Okay? Now, continuing with our problem, let us solve for m or the moment equation kasi yan, hindi yan given, right? So, paano yan gagawin? Di ba puputulin natin to sa pinakadulo just before yung dulo. So, hindi pala sa dulo puputulin nyo. Bago yung dulo. Okay? So, putulin nyo muna bago kayo maghiwalay. Kasi yung dulo is end. Ay, nakakalito. Basta ganun. Putulin dito. Now, continuing with that, mga bis, before we can proceed with that, we need to know the values of the reaction here at A and B. Kasi support reactions naman niya. But before that, let us consider that there would be no there would be no reactions at A and B because if you would try to look at the the loadings dito sa ating problem, wala tayong any single force. So any single vertical force, I should say. So, walang mag-create ng response sa A at B. Okay? So, meron kasi tayo dito ang dalawang moments at both ends. But if you would try to prove that, we can at least also do a summation moments B or summation moments A. It will give you the answer 0. Ang isang instance pa kasi dyan, no, ito kasi mga Bs, they are conflicting, no. This is going counterclockwise and clockwise ito counter. So, they are with the same magnitude. Parang nagka-cancel lang. So, 0 at all. Okay? So, ayun. But better, no, to have a more accurate solution, siguro, no, you do summation moments. Mas lalo kapag sure solution, di ba? Okay, so, continuing with this problem, no, puputulin nga natin yan, di ba? So, when we cut that section, mga Bs, no, we expect that, okay, so when we cut that section, mga Bs, no, meron tayo dito concentrated moment, right? Now, to write our moment equation, we go back to the basics, clockwise moments, positive, counterclockwise, negative. Ito lang naman yung meron tayong moment dito. It is going clockwise ba, counter? So, it is going counter. Tama ba? Counter yan, mga Bs. Ibig sabihin, negative 20. Ayan. So, this is our moment equation, mga Bs, no? Ito sana express natin to in terms of x, right? But, since we don't have any, we don't have any forces here that would connect it to x, well, it's okay. Okay? So, ang moment natin is negative 20. Now, if that's our m, no? If that's our m, mga Bs, then we can write our equation ei y double prime is equal to negative 20. So, ayan. Ito na yung equation na working equation natin, mga Bs. So, let's now proceed to the integration part. So, magdo-double integration na tayo. So, for the first integration, itong ating ei, y double prime, magiging ei, y prime na lang siya. Kasi integrate natin eh. Now, since we are integrating this in terms of x, ito magiging negative 20x. Then, we include here a arbitrary constant for the first integration. So, simply said, this is our slope equation. Yeah. This is our slope equation. Now, ito mga Bs, integrate ulit natin to have our deflection equation. We need to turn y prime into y only. Okay, so integrate natin yan. Itong ei constant, so magiging ei pa rin. Itong y prime, tatanggal yung prime niya, so y na lang. And then dito, mag-a-add lang tayo ng 1's exponent ng x. So, x plus 1 is 2. Joke lang. 1 plus 1 is 2. So, x squared divided by, divide natin kung anong exponent naman na yan. Plus c1, and then we'll just add x. Okay, so integration rules. And then, do not forget, we have another arbitrary constant here as c2. Okay, so ito yung ating deflection equation. Diba? Deflection equation. Now, before we can proceed to solving the slope at A and the deflection, maximum deflection, we need to determine first the value of our arbitrary constant. Itong C1 tsaka C2, ano yung mga values ng mga yan. So, how are we going to do that? Again, we use conditions. Ano ba yung mga alam na natin with our beam without solving any things, no? Ano yung mga alam nating values ng deflection or slope dito sa ating beam? Let's start here at C1. Let us try to look at this equation, no? Anong alam natin na value ng y prime? Diba? Y prime is also known as dy over dx or the slope or rise over run. Anong alam natin na values ng slope dito sa ating beam? Yung sinabi ko kanina, diba? We can say that at this point, at the midspan, the value of the slope at midspan is 0. Okay? Kasi the beam is symmetrical in nature. So, kapag magbi-bend yan or it will create magdi-deflect, at this portion, no, the slope is 0. So, going back here, we can say that at when our x, kapag yung x na to would be at the midspan, so ibig sabihin kapag midspan yan, magiging hahatiin yung 12, so 6 plus 6. So when x is 12, we know that the slope is equal to 0, diba? This slope is also the y prime or dy over dx, okay? So, let us use this equation, mga bis. We have ei, y prime is equal to negative 20x plus c1. Substitute lang tayo. Yung ei natin, that's constant. Ano yung y prime or the slope? 0, diba? Minus 20. Ano yung x natin? 12. So, times 12 plus C1. So, makita natin mga bis, we can solve for C1. Ito, cancel yan kasi times 0. Tapos ito, 20 times 12 magiging negative 240. Pero ilipat natin sa kabilang side, magiging positive 240. Yan. So, that's the value of our C1. Now, let us go here sa ating deflection equation so we can solve for C2. Ano yung alam nating deflection dito sa ating beam without solving anything? So, it is safe to say that at supports at support A and support B, we can say that the deflection at these points are 0. So we can use the conditions that either at x is equal to ito. At x is equal to 6, we know that y or the deflection is 0 also at B. Alam natin na at x is equal to 12 plus 6 is 18, right? At x is equal 18, the value of our y or the deflection is also 0. So both of these conditions will give us the same value of C2. So, let us use the first condition na at x is equal to 6, y is equal to 0. Okay. So, kapag ito equation natin, substitute lang natin yung mga to. So, our y here is 0. So, ei times y which is 0. Pinalit ko na. Negative 20. Ano yung x? 6, diba? 6 squared over 2 plus, ano yung C1 ulit natin? Ayun, 240. 240 tapos, yung x natin is 6. 6 plus C2. Okay. Now, ito, simplify na natin. EI times 0. 0 yan. Ito mga bis, magiging 20 divided by 2 is 10. 10 times 6 squared, 10 times 36 would be 360. So, negative 360 plus. Ito, 240 times 6 is, hindi na kaya ng utak. Teka lang, kasyo. Kailangan natin ng, call a friend. 240 times 6. Oh, 144 pala, no? Oh, 1440 plus 1440 plus C2. So, simplify na lang natin. Ilipat yung dalawang to sa kabila. C2 would be equal to negative 1080. Okay? So, that is the values of C1 and C2. So, finally, we can rewrite our slope equation and deflection equation without any unknowns, without the C1 and C2. So, rewrite ko lang ang ating slope equation. Slope equation, mga bis, would be equal to EI, y prime is equal to negative 20x plus C1, which is C1, 240. Okay, so deflection equation, def ec would be EIY is equal to, ito, simplify na natin, 20 divided by 2 is 10. Negative 10 x squared plus C1. Ang C1 natin is 240. 240x, meron tayong x doon, okay? Plus C2. Ano yung C2 natin? Negative 1080. Ayan. So, this is the slope equation and the deflection equation. So, if we would like to solve at the slope when x is 6, dito nga, palit na lang natin tong x equals 6 sa mga variable x na yon, then we can solve for y prime. Same likewise sa deflection. Now, let's go back to the problem. Ano yung mga tinatanong? Slope at A. Let's start with that. Slope at A. So, at A, at point A is also the, anong tawag dito? At point A is also the pin support. Okay? So, ang x natin dyan would be 6. That distance is our x. Okay? So, at slope A, x is equals to 6. Now, we are tasked to solve for the slope. So, definitely, we will use the slope equation. Ito yung gagamitin natin. So, EI, y prime is equal to negative 20. Ano yung x natin, mga bis? That's 6. Okay? Yan. Times 6 plus 240. Okay, so simplify na lang natin yan mga bis. We would have an answer of negative 20 times 6 is negative 120 plus 240. This is equal to positive 120, di ba? So, itong E ay ilagay na lang natin sa baba. Transpose natin sa kabilang side ng equation. So, pupunta siya sa denominator, right? So, that's 120 over EI. Okay, so, that is the slope, mga bis, no? Ito yung magiging slope niya at A. At A. So, let us try to look at the answer. Ayun, mga bis. So, the slope at A, sorry, I did not include the units. That would be 120 keep foot squared divided by EI. Okay, so, usually, no, if ever na itong EI natin na may value and then it canceled out with the units in the numerator, this should be in rods, yung magiging unit niya. However, dito kasi hindi naman nasabi kung ano yung EI, so ito na lang yung ilagay nating units. Keep foot squared over EI. Alright, so going back to our question. Na-solve na natin yung slope at A and then let us solve for the maximum deflection. Diba yung pinag-usapan natin kanina na para sa akin, the maximum deflection can either occur at the midspan kasi in symmetry naman siya or dito sa ating mga free ends. Okay, so naka-symmetry naman siya, so it's either of these two. So we could either set our x as 12 dito sa midspan and x equals to 0 dito. So let us compare the two answers which would give us the max def or the maximum deflection. So let's start when at x is equal to 12. Try natin. So at x is equal to 12. Let's solve for the y. So, gamitin na natin ito, yung deflection equation since we are solving for deflection. So, EI, y is equal to, palit na natin, negative 10 times 12 squared plus 240 times 12, tama, minus 1080. Okay, so y would be equal to, ano yan? Negative 12 squared is 44, 1440. Plus 240 times 12, ano pa ba? Minus 1080, we would have an answer of 360. So, 360 over, parang ito, dilipat natin sa baba, over EI. So, makita natin mga bis, positive yung sagot natin. Kasi this is at the midspan, di ba? X equal 12. Ibig sabihin, sa taas yung deflection, tumaas. Di ba? So, dito. Which is just right, no? That's one way of checking our answer if tama. Now, let us solve naman when our x is 0. When our x is 0 or when our x is like 18 or no, joke lang. 24 pala. It would still give you the same answer. So, tignan natin kung mas malaki ba or mas mababa siya dito sa midspan. So, at x is equal to 0, EI, y is equal to negative 10 times 0 plus 240 times 0 minus 1080. So, cancel. Makikita natin, negative 1080. Therefore, y is equal to negative 1080 over EI. Okay? So, ayan mga bis. Negative yung sagot natin. Bakit? If you would try to look the figure, pababa dapat tama. So, kaya siya negative. So, ayan. So, analyzing the two, which one has higher deflection? Well, we could now conclude that the maximum deflection occurs at any of these free end, at point C or at this point, no, sa dalawang free end na yan. Kasi, yun yung maximum deflection. Sorry, okay. So, ayun, negative 1080 over EI. So, ayun. That's our answer. So, pinasitive niya, pero naglagay naman siya ng arrow na pababa. Okay, which suggests that the deflection goes downwards. Okay, so yun nga no, mga bis, here's the slope at A and the maximum deflection. Nung kinumpara nga natin, mas malaki yung sa dulo, free end, no? I'm not sure lang if this applies to all kinds of double overhanging beam. How if the supports, siguro andito siya, nakadikit siya, malawak yung nasa gitna ng simply supported beam. For example, andito lang yung support niya, andito, tsaka andito. yung maximum deflection pa rin ba is sa free end? I'm not sure, no? So, I think this varies as per condition. But if I'm wrong, kindly correct me sa comment section. That would be a good point of discussion kung constant or absolute nga ba na that maximum deflection will be the free end. But I think hindi, no? It would be best to compare at mid-span tsaka free. Ayun. So, ayun lang. That's it mga bees, no? If you have some questions in mind or clarifications, huwag mahihiyang magtanong. Sabi nga ng Jerica, di ba? Kindly comment it down below at tatry natin yung pag-usapan. Okay, so that's it mga bees. Please like, share, and subscribe. Muli ako yung bubuyog na nagpapala sa inyong maglakbay, mag-enjoy, maglaro, manaliksik, maging matinik. Jabi out.